well, stabbing Israel in the back, but actually it was, I think, initiated, as Israel is suggesting, initiated by Barack Obama. Brigitte, which is just staggering, and yet why should we be surprised when a man has spent 20 years under the teaching of Jeremiah Wright, this is what you get, and then his Islamic background as well. I want to play, Brigitte, just a short clip of John Bolton talking about this UN activity back on December 23rd, and then I want to get your response, please.
President Obama stabbing Israel in the back on his way out of office. I'm Eric Bolling in for Sean tonight. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, is fired up and will be here in just a moment with reaction. But first, in what many are calling the ultimate betrayal in America's alliance with Israel, the Obama administration earlier today allowed the United Nations to pass a resolution condemning Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank as, quote, a flagrant violation of international law. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reacting by saying, quote, Israel rejects the shameful anti-Israel resolution at the UN and will not abide by its terms. Netanyahu adding, quote, the Obama administration not only failed to protect Israel against this gang-up at the UN, it colluded with it behind the scenes. And President-elect Donald Trump is responding by tweeting this, quote, as to the UN, things will be different after January 20th. Here now with reaction is former U.S. Ambassador to the UN and Fox News contributor John Bolton. Thank you, Ambassador Bolton. Wow. Big day at the UN. So tell us, do you think that the UN Security Council colluded with the Obama administration to bring this vote today?
Well, I think certainly the sponsors of the resolution, the Egyptians, some of the others, some of the 5 permanent members of the council, including Great Britain, obviously had to consult with the Obama administration to tell them what was in the resolution so that it was sufficient for Obama to order an abstention. The United States could have killed this resolution by voting no. It did vote no on a very similar resolution in 2011. But this was, and you said it exactly right at the top of the show, this was a stab in the back against the Israelis. It was entirely predictable. I would say this for people in the pro-Israel community in the United States who defended Obama's Middle East policy over these last 8 years. You should have seen this coming, and this is what you get for supporting Barack Obama.
Yeah, and this is a shot, I guess, it's at Israel, but also President Obama had a pretty contentious relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Well, I think it goes beyond the personal. I really think this was an effort to box the incoming Trump administration in, and it violates nearly 50 years of American bipartisan policy on the Middle East, going back to the iconic Resolution 242 after the 1967 war, which established the principle of land for peace. This resolution says basically Israel's occupation is illegitimate, therefore it has no land to give back in exchange for peace. Contrary to what the Obama administration has said, this puts a huge thumb on the scale against Israel. It does go to final status. It does affect Israel's security. It undermines it in profound ways. The consequences of this resolution are going to be felt for many, many years, all negative on Israel and substantially negative on the United States itself.
Brigitte Gabriel, basically we go back to 1967, Auschwitz borders, indefensible. Jerusalem itself becomes occupied territory. Give me your response to this.
Well, we were not surprised. Obama is showing his true colors, and this is important for the Jewish community who voted for him 80% out of the Jewish community twice, not just once. And now those of us who have warned the leftist Jews in this country about where Obama stands on Israel, I think after this, there is no doubt. And he wanted to do this on his way out, Jan.
Yep.
And here's why. Because remember, who are his advisors on Middle East policy? ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, which is an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation trial as a front for the Muslim Brotherhood. Do you see how the connections right now, the links go back to the Muslim Brotherhood and how they had infiltrated us to the highest level?
Right.
So President Obama was very close to ISNA, Islamic Society of North America. As a matter of fact, the president of ISNA wrote President Obama's speech, the first famous Arabic speech which he delivered to the Islamic world in Egypt. So this is how we say, we not only have the fox watching the hen house, we have the fox talks inside the White House,
Right.
talking policy in the ear of the president. CARE had over 300 visits to the White House under Obama. I mean, the list goes on and on. So Obama is very much influenced by Israel haters who have been actively working for the last 8 years to do everything they can to damage Israel or to do anything where to separate our government from Israel, to sever relationship with Israel as much as they can, or to at least sabotage our relationship with Israel. And they have succeeded. And Obama wanted to make sure he nails the nail in the coffin on his way out the door with this security resolution, with this resolution that the Security Council just passed.
Well, they're saying more is to come. Do you think that's possible?
Well, we will see. I mean, obviously, you are seeing a huge backlash, and I'm sure the Jewish community, even those who supported Obama right now, are basically burning up the phone lines, calling and trying to lobby and trying to change things. Unfortunately, elections are over. Obama is no longer in need of their money, and the elected officials who are already sitting in their offices are no longer in need of their money. So the Jewish community is not going to have as much influence over the Democratic Party, and especially over Obama White House, as much as they did. Hillary is out. They cannot influence her. So it's open season for Obama, and we're just going to have to wait and see.
All of us, at least those on the more conservative side of the aisle, would love to see the United Nations just go away. We'd love to see President Trump turn that building in New York into some apartment buildings or something. But it's time. I mean, the United Nations, I think it had, when it was assembled back in right after World War II, probably had some good intentions, but those good intentions were never acted on, and they're not being acted on today. My goodness, we ignore what's going on in Syria with 500,000 deaths there, and yet we pick on the only democracy in the Middle East, Israel. Israel was very significant in your world, Brigitte. They came to your aid so many years ago when you were persecuted in Lebanon.
Yes, they did. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, a true democracy. And, maybe this vote at the United Nations, Jan, is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I mean, we now at least have 2 elected officials in Congress calling for the stopping of the funding of the United Nations and getting it out of the United States. And we will see. Maybe that's exactly what we need. People like you and me have been speaking about getting rid of the United Nations since 2004.
Yes.
Like you said, we give them all this money, and here, Syria, hundreds of thousands of people are dying. We are witnessing ethnic cleansing from across the globe, and the only nation that they pick on is the nation of Israel, the only democratic country and the true ally of America and the Middle East. Actually, the Israelis are so kind that they are actually taking Syrian wounded and treating them in Israel for free just to take care of them. Just like what they did with me when I was a young girl in the war in Lebanon. Israel was our only lifeline, while our own government forgot about us during the civil war, the Lebanese civil war. Israel came in and helped the Christians and took them into Israel and gave them medical treatment and gave them everything they needed. And this is why you hear my passion for Israel, because I have witnessed it up close and personal, the compassion, the respect, and the values of the Israeli people, which is something unmatched in any other country anywhere in the Middle East.
Well, Brigitte, you're right. Your testimony is fascinating. What is the name of the book that has your testimony in it?
My book is titled Because They Hate, and it's a New York Times bestseller. It's about my testimony growing up in Lebanon as a Christian girl, going to Israel. Before I went to Israel, I was taught that Israel is bad and Israel is evil, and then ended up going to Israel and seeing how wonderful and amazing the Jews are and how they treated us, and they saved my mother's life. I ended up moving to Israel and working in Israel, so I encourage people to read that book. It's a truly inspiring story. And the book is titled Because They Hate.
That's the first book I became familiar of yours, Brigitte, with Brigitte's actual story in it, which is an amazing story. I mean, she ate grass, she barely survived, and she did escape, was aided by Israel. Of course, that's a number of years ago. That was during the war in Lebanon in the mid-1970s. Incredible story, Because They Hate. Her other book is They Must Be Stopped. You can check that out at Amazon or find information at actforamerica.org.